Here's another one, Ford 8N. It's a later one with the side distributor.
That I can maybe use the part off. I look at the fenders and I'm like, ah, yeah. Welcome back. Right here is my 1951 Ford 8N. If you've seen the last video, we pulled this out of a shed with an Allis-Chalmers WD and an Allis-Chalmers WC as long with a mower that went on the back of this tractor. Tractors hadn't run in at least 15 years. This one, that's what we're thinking, about 15 years since it ran. But I'd like to change that today. And got some grass that needs mowed, and we got that mower. So let's see if we can get this thing going and mow some grass.
Nothing has really changed with it since I put it here. Rolled it off the trailer in this very spot. Aside from we got a huge torrential downpour, which actually washed it up pretty nice. Got all that barn dust off. Made sure I threw this bucket on there before the rain happened, so we didn't get any water down in the transmission. But everything else is pretty covered up on this thing, and nothing really looks too out of place. So get it pushed up in the shop over there and dive into it, see if we can get it going. Well, knowing what we know, I'm going to assume that the battery's dead. There's evidence that maybe there was a maintainer on it at some time, but it appears to be pretty well dead. Oh my gosh, it's not. It's got power. Wow. Wow, maybe this wasn't sitting that long. I can't believe it's got power. We'll just start. Wow. Okay. This thing might not have been sitting that long. Well, it smells like it. I guess if it had a maintainer on the battery, it might have been around for a while. But yeah, this one might be an easy one to get going. Didn't expect that at all. It definitely has not run for quite a while. I mean, it's got bad gas in it. I can't believe that battery's still charged. I guess maybe if somebody tried to get it running, they may have put a battery in it and tried to start it, and maybe it wouldn't start. So let's give that a try. So yeah, I guess it's got battery. I guess we'll move on to let's check the fluids and see about putting some gas in it. Put some gas in it, it might just run. That would be cool. So surprisingly, we got some juice. Let's check the engine oil. Little overfull, a little dirty, but I'm gonna say that's all right. Antifreeze. Looks damp in there, but no coolant. Radiator looks like it was either redone or re-cored. You know, this shaping up, it might be a pretty decent little tractor. See how low it is. Top it off here. Didn't take too much. Got the dipstick down here on the rear end transmission. It's right up to the full mark. It looks clean. Man, this thing is looking better and better all the time. Let's check and see if it has spark. Now one of these wires is already pulled off, so I'm wondering if somebody hasn't already done this and it doesn't have spark. Maybe that's why they parked it. Turn the key on and crank it over. spark. Let's see if we're getting 6 volts to the distributor. We're getting 6 volts into the coil, 6 volts out of the coil. Six volts to the distributor. Okay, so we've got power into the distributor like we should. So now we're looking at what's inside this thing, see if we're getting spark. It might just be dirty points. So as I mentioned in the previous video, when we got this home, this is a later model 8N 1951, and it's known as a side distributor model. So prior to this being on the right side of the engine, they were tucked all the way up in front, in between the fan belt, and not even sure if I could get a video of working on one of those. They're not nearly as accessible as this. So our rotor button doesn't look too bad. A little dirty, but nothing. Doesn't look like anything's wrong with it. Looks like a good one. Some of the newer ones you have issues with the replacement, so if these are in good shape, just keep them. Don't toss them for what you think is better because it's new, because the quality of the new parts is not as good as these. And when you're working on Ford distributors, be aware they have these little clips that act as a shim and keep that rotor button tight, but they will fly away if you're not careful. The dust cover off. Now we're looking inside the distributor. A little dirty, but not too bad. We're towards the lobe there, the top of the lobe, so let's rotate the engine. So the points are completely shut. There we go. I'm going to turn on the ignition. And what I like to do is just come back here and put a screwdriver in here. And if you can help it, don't touch the arm, but just open and close them. And you might be able to hear that, but that's just a really weak spark. So it sounds like our coil's working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file these points. If you just messed with them and they were open, it's always a good idea to come in here and make sure you ground it out before you stick a conductive piece of metal in there to file it, or might get a bit of a wake-up call. But just put this in here, and I like adding a little extra pressure with my other finger. So you're just gonna put it in here and file. Now you could use actually a nail file, fingernail file. You could use a piece of sandpaper. A lot of times those work even better than these little points files do. Now that see, these points are burnt a fair bit. They're not great, but they'll get us going. We can use it a little bit here. These should either really need sanded more or replaced. I'm going to bring it back over so the contact here with the cam is on the top of one of the lobes. Yeah, about right there. I'm going to check the clearance in the points. It's a little bit tight, seems like. It's not quite right on the top. Bump it over to the next one. There, we're right at the top. Nope, they're good. Nothing to worry about there. Now you can probably see this wire here is in not good shape, but I think that's all right for now. Just to get this thing running. As long as electricity's passing through that, we're getting 6 volts. I'm not gonna fret with that. I'm gonna put a tiny little dab of oil right there, and gonna put some here. And we'll put this back together. Now don't forget your little clip. You can also take that points file to the contact on the rotor. Piece of sandpaper works too. Clean that up a little bit. Put our cap back on. Make sure you twist it to get it aligned. There's a little groove right here. It's got to line up with the groove back here. You'll feel it fall in. There you go. Check for spark. Ignition is on. Let's crank it. Well, after doing some more testing around, I believe my spark tester wasn't working. This should do the trick to show you. Bit of a weak spark, but it's there. I'm awful curious if there was anything wrong with this tractor, if it was just parked due to the fella's health. Put some fuel in it and let it drain through the lines, flush out anything that's in the carburetor, and maybe this will run. Pretty much all these carburetors have a drain in the bottom. This one's right here. Just going to take this loose and let anything that's in it run out. Hopefully it's as dry as the tank was. The tank looks good in this tractor. But I'm going to take this loose and then turn the fuel valve on, and you can flush anything that's in the sediment bowl or the tank or the lines, get it out of there so we've got all fresh gas in it. Nothing coming out. Got a little bit of rust on the plug, but hopefully that's all right. The fuel in the bowl doesn't look great, and we've got this fuel line coming in here at a awful precarious angle, but I'm gonna pretend that that's okay. I got some leak in there. I have to put a gasket in there. Pull this sediment bowl off. See, this looks like it had been replaced not that long ago as well. Not real clean. Pull the old gasket out. Make sure there is good flow out of it. Oh yeah. Put the screen back in there. Put the new gasket in there. Reinstall our clean sediment bowl. This gasket's a little thicker than the last one. You got to be real careful, especially with reproduction sediment bowls, because this top portion, if you draw this bail down too tight, it'll warp the top portion and you'll never get it to seal up. So now we have hardly any fuel coming down through it, even with the valve all the way on. And what that's telling me is that before we had air leaking out here, now it's not, but we have our needle in our carburetor stuck. I'm going to give a couple taps on the carburetor to jar the needle loose and
the fuel should start flowing.
Crack this fitting loose, make sure that's not a clog in the line. The line might be clogged a little bit because I've got it loose and we still have nothing coming through. So I'm going to blow back through this line and see if we can clear it out. There we go. Even though the line is clear, it seems like the carburetor isn't. So let's send a little air through it. There we go. Give it a couple taps, shake anything loose. Let it flush out. Now we're flooding with the needle sticking. Alright, now the needle seems like it quit sticking, but I noticed the bowl on this carburetor is loose. See if I can get a little bit more thread on each of these screws. Okay, so I think this tractor actually might fire up. So we've got fuel, we do have spark, seems like it's got compression, got battery, coolant in it, the engine's got oil, the rear end has oil. I say we turn the key on and give it a try. It's gonna live! Maybe not happily, but I think it's gonna live. So we're definitely having some fueling issues with this. Pulled the main jet needle out and it's kind of got rust all over it. So I'm gonna pop this carburetor off and we'll take a look at what it's like inside. Come on. One nice thing about Fords is they've got these quick connect linkages. They knew you were going to work on it. Alright, let's tear this puppy apart and see what's inside. Hopefully the gasket on this thing is, since the screws were loose, comes apart without tearing. Oh no! That's not good. Those floats should not be crushed like that. I don't actually think there's no holes in them. But that looks like there's water in here, and maybe the water smashed them. I don't know. I don't have a spare float laying around, so those are in bad shape. We'll see if they work. But that's our real problem, is the whole bottom of that is just full of rust. All the main jets are just clogged right up. So I did some real light sandblasting in the bowl of the carburetor and got the passages open. Everything's open in the upper part of the carburetor, but I wanted to see if this float was even floating, and it's not. Like, really not at all. So I gotta try to inflate these. So what I'm going to attempt here is I've got the smallest drill bit in an index and a rubber tipped air nozzle. I'm going to drill a small little hole in here and try to add air, blow it out a decent amount, and then solder the hole back shut. Somewhere that it won't affect it a lot. Try to hold this at an angle you can see. Whoa! There we go, we're reinflated. Maybe a touch overinflated. I'm gonna get it closer to the size it should be. Did work though. These shouldn't be bulged out, so gonna reshape them a little bit. Bulge back out. I do want to make sure that these are fitting in here okay, because if they're too bulgy, they'll rub the sides of the bowl. A little bit of soldering paste on there. It's awful hot. I need something to hold it. Solder with a lower melt temperature helps. There we go. Hole's all soldered shut. Didn't add much weight. See if our buoyancy has increased. Oh yeah, that's what we want. See if we got any air bubbles. No air bubbles, so it looks like they're sealed up. Can't hear any water shaking around. So let's put this back in the carburetor, put it together, and see if it'll run then. Our needle, a float shaft. Generally you want the top of your float to be parallel with the top of your carburetor gasket, and these look pretty close. I prefer to run them just a little lower if you have to, because if you get it too close, you just end up with flooding issues or seepage out this gasket area. Put our main jet back in. Checked all these passages, they're clear now. This is the jet that feeds the main load into your engine. So as your fuel, or as your air comes through the carburetor and up the center, it pulls a vacuum and pulls fuel out of this jet. And this screw that you see sticking out the side goes down at an angle and measures and meters how much fuel comes into that jet. These carburetors are really simple. Usually the worst part about them when I work on them is a lot of times the main gasket likes to tear, and then you end up having to order that gasket. I'd like to get a machine to cut gaskets, you know, more complex ones like that in the future. Because for what it cost to buy that gasket, like $10 plus shipping, you could darn near buy a whole roll of gasket material. Good place to start on these is generally 1.5 turns out. Half, 1, 1.5. Or plug back in, put it back on the tractor. Throttle linkage hooked back up. Throttle return spring. You can probably see this doesn't shut off all the way, which probably caused this issue in the first place. We'll check this idle mixture screw. These are usually about 1 turn out is a good start. Turn the fuel back on. You can see it flowing now. Hopefully nothing's leaking. Doesn't look like it. Looks like no leaks out of carburetor. Everything's hooked back up. So let's give this thing a shot of running again. Keys on. Neutral. There were a couple spark plug wires that looked like they weren't in the right spot, so let me swap them. Try that. That sounds better. It's not running great, but it was running. Still fuel related. You give it a choke and it doesn't run too bad. Well, it's running. All the oil's burning off the exhaust. It's not really the engine smoking, it's just rear end oil burning off. That's good oil pressure. Charging the battery. The hitch works. Yeah, I think we can take it outside. Here's first. Brakes work? Oh yeah, we got brakes. Second. Left brake works a little better than the right brake. Let's see, we got third. There we go. Oh yeah. These are a nice driving little tractor compared to one of those. Fourth gear. It's there. Let's see if it works. Oh yeah. Doesn't seem like a bad little tractor. Well, I tinkered with this thing a little more. Got the fuel leak figured out. Wasn't nothing but a loose plug. There's a little bit of an antifreeze drip out the top hose. I think that's going to kind of seal up. I can't really get on the hose clamp. Got the front grill in it. It's in there. It's not coming out. It's a little whopper jawed. But I think this thing's good enough. We can hook that mower up out there and mow some grass. Mower doesn't look to be in too bad a shape. Blades on it look like new. Yeah, it has a little bit of rust stuff in there, but nothing crazy. Our muffler has decided to give out. If I give this thing a fluid check and grease the spindles up first. Looks like you probably got to check the fluid up top breather here. Looks really good and clean in there. Fluid's about halfway up the gearbox. I think that would be good. I'm really surprised how well this hydraulics are holding up. You don't seem to be drifting down at all. I'll let that soak a while. Okay, well, I've had this shaft soaking all night, and it looks like it's soaked all the way to the bottom. I don't know if where it's rubbed here on the deck, if that's what's making it tie up or what, but I'm gonna chain it to the table and get a slide hammer and see if we can get it popped apart. Got this side here chained up. I'm gonna see if I can yank this one out. Well, I've got my old Alice Chalmers UC and my D2 dozer here, which is our semi-immovable object, and this PTO shaft in between. So let's see if we can yank it apart. Dug a couple little ruts there with the UCs, so the thing was stuck pretty good. Shook the crawler around a little bit. Get the shaft hooked back up. Now this tractor uses the old style small PTO shaft, so there's actually an adapter in here that goes on the tractor side. And the mower side is just your standard 540. And then your mower side is just a standard 540. I think this all deserves a bit of a bath, so get the pressure washer out and clean everything up. And let's give this thing a try.
would consider this a wonderful success of reviving this 1951 Ford 8N, and even the finish mower we bought with them works pretty good. Obviously there's still a little bit of a fuel system issue there. I'll go ahead and probably clean the carburetor again, check the fuel lines out. Something's clogging it up. That's pretty normal stuff for anything this old, but overall I think it's a really great tractor, and it's not something that's going to live in my collection long term. Probably going to pass this one down the line to somebody else. This is still a really usable tractor for someone with the 3-point hitch. Everything seems to work pretty good, minus some, wiring, and you're not really going to have lights unless you want to mess with that. But yeah, it's going to need a muffler and some odds and ends. We got this plate, but the nut's missing that holds it on. Nothing too crazy. It's still a really good tractor. So if you like this kind of stuff and you like seeing these old machines revived, subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be more. I do this stuff all the time. It's something I really enjoy, and I enjoy sharing it. So, and if you want to help support it, leave a comment, like this video, check out some of the other videos on the channel. You watching those videos helps fund being able to save this stuff. So really appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you on the next one.